Hello and welcome to Serverless Office Hours, our third installment. We're live here at the Serverless Team Retreat in Ukiah, California, with team members from all over the globe to chat with you, our community. Let's give a couple seconds for people to join in the live cast. We got to retweet out the link. Can you pull up the YouTube channel? Oh, it's working.
It is.
Technology is amazing.
Should we do some intros?
Let's do some intros. That's a good idea, Austin. Why don't you take it away?
Sure thing, David. I'm Austin Collins. I'm the founder of Serverless Inc. I created JAWS, which eventually became the Serverless Framework. I did that about 1.5 years ago. And now I have this great company with all these fantastic people. And as David said, we're on our team retreat. We're here in beautiful Northern California, where it's actually been raining for a week straight. So we've been stuck in this cabin working on product development stuff, which has been pretty good, actually. Yeah, and we're here to hang out, answer questions. We've got, I think we're only going to do about 30 minutes this morning because we got a lot of stuff we're doing here at the retreat. But anyway, that's me.
Cool. I'm David Wells. I'm kind of doing developer evangelist here at Serverless, amongst other things. And yeah, I'm here to help facilitate this meeting of the minds in our community.
Yeah.
Philip.
Philip, yeah, hi, I'm Philip Münz from Germany. So I traveled the whole long way to hang out with those amazing people here. And I work on the framework team. And yeah, I'm kind of like one of the core developers, but I also work together with an amazing community to build an awesome framework, an awesome service framework.
Yeah, I'm Nick. I'm also from Europe, and I'm also helping out with the framework. And especially over the last month, I invested a lot of time to build a lot of examples so you have it easier to adopt these. And yeah, let's get started. Huh?
Let's do it.
Cool.
So what we're going to jump into just some real quick announcements before we jump into the questions that you guys have tweeted at us at #AskServerless. Like Nick just mentioned, he kind of stole my thunder there, but the examples repository is growing every day, and there's some really good use case kind of boilerplates that you can SLS install directly from that repository. Swap out your kind of custom logic, and you're off to the races deploying your bits and pieces of serverless architecture. So highly recommend checking that out.
How many examples do we have in there now?
15, 20, 25?
Yeah, we have about, I'd say around 20. And it's not just from us as well. It's like we've had community members contribute there as well. And if you have your own projects that are good serverless examples, there is a JSON file that you can put in your example, and we'll kind of feature that out to the community as well.
I think it's pretty incredible that we have so much because we just started the examples repo like 1.5 months ago.
Yeah,
right?
And I just checked, there's 9 pull requests that came over the last 1 to 2 weeks.
Really?
So
Wow.
people are really investing and glad to see.
Yeah,
Cool.
It is good stuff. And then the other thing I wanted to call out was, so the core serverless framework supports a ton of different use cases. However, if you do find yourself in a position where you need to do something custom that the core framework doesn't do, you're in luck because it's built out to be completely extensible. And our framework guys did a bang up job creating our plugin system. So if you do need some sort of custom functionality that hasn't either made it into the core framework yet, or just something you need for your individual use cases, check out our plugins repository. So github.com/serverless/plugins. And there's a huge list of plugins out there built either internally by us, or most of them are actually community driven as well. So if you have a plugin that you've made that you do want to share and give back to the serverless community, highly recommend adding that into that repository. And we feature that on the main serverless README as well. And we're doing some things to make it easier for plugins to become discoverable when you're building out your applications. So,
and the plugin system is really a core feature of the framework. When I was starting this on day one, when it first went viral, when this project went viral, it was very cool. But the next day, there were a ton of issues and pull requests, all for custom needs that people wanted. And the framework supports, it tries to cover a broad surface area. And that is like a lot of AWS functionality, specifically in AWS, as we all know, is huge in what they offer. And I quickly realized that there was no way that even an open source project was really going to scale to match all the custom needs that people and configurations that people want to do on Amazon. So from day one, this whole framework was designed with a plugin system. I think we have an awesome plugin system right now and a great community. I think we have, how many now? How many plugins?
Oh,
like 50?
50?
Yeah. It's up there.
Yeah.
Growing every day.
Yeah. So if there's something the framework doesn't do, of course, there's probably a plugin that'll help you do it. I think there are as many developer styles as there are developers in the room. So if you need to have some custom workflow or some special use case you need, I'm sure there's a plugin for it. So definitely check it out.
Yeah, another quick announcement is that we now have with version 1.5 and the recent version 1.6 Alexa and IoT device or event support. So you can hook up your Alexa, develop Alexa skills, and let serverless handle those skills for you. And also IoT event support. So if you have an IoT device like a toaster, for example, you can also hook it up to your Lambda functions and let those react to your toaster.
Awesome. That sounds amazing. We just got a tweet from one of my favorite community members, Kevin Old. He said, "Hey guys, move a little bit closer to the mic." So we might need to get cozy in here and talk a little bit louder. Thank you, Kevin, for that tip.
You're the man, Kevin.
He says that's better. Amazing.
Yeah, I think we're all talking like that's the mic up there.
Yeah. Cool. So next, we're gonna jump into questions. But before we do, I wanted to call out these people in the background. This isn't a green screen. This is actually our team. Say hi, team. Oh, yeah. Thanks, Casey. Say hi. Anyways, all right. So let's jump into some questions. Let's see. The first question is from Asante Banez. And his question is, how is the team tackling CloudFormation stack limits, and will the framework go back to not deploying via CloudFormation? Do you guys want to tackle this one?
Yeah, so the answer to that is that we will stick to CloudFormation, so we won't go back to deployment without CloudFormation. And there are two different types of limits right now. So you have the resource limits, and those limits are basically how many resources you add to your service. And the thing is that if you have a really large service, it might be a good idea to split it up into multiple smaller ones. And we just introduced versioning for Lambda functions, and the problem or the issue there is that for each Lambda function, when versioning is enabled, that also a version resource will be created. And this is by default right now, but we already got a pull request so that you can disable Lambda versioning so that you can reduce the resource count. And the other limit we have right now is the output limit. And this is also something we are working on, because right now for every function you have, an ARN output will be created. And the problem there is that, if you have 20 functions, you will have 20 outputs because of 20 ARNs. And there is a refactoring in the works, which will basically just create one output, a kind of skeleton, and then we can create those ARNs on the fly, so that we only have one output and not 20, for example, if we have 20 Lambda functions. And then we can create those 20 ARNs on the fly. But the problem with that is that this will be a breaking change. And if we go back to the good old days when we were developing the alpha and beta releases, we made a ton of breaking changes, which were bad for the community. We're sorry about that, but yeah, this will be a breaking change, so we can only tackle this in version 2. And yeah, but we're working on it.
Yeah, maybe I can add that like we're currently looking into when to do a 2.0 and what will be in and what not. And we definitely want to make sure that there are like very little breaking changes, so it's a very convenient upgrade story. I want to add that one important part, or like why we are choosing CloudFormation and why we want to stick to it, is because if you're deploying larger infrastructures or services that are critical, the benefit of CloudFormation is that you can have an atomic infrastructure change. While if you don't use it, so for example, if something goes wrong in between when you deploy a new service or when you deploy a new version of your service, what happens is like if you use CloudFormation, it's atomic and either it happens or it doesn't happen at all. While if you don't use CloudFormation, it would be single API requests, and you could end up in a pretty decent mess with your infrastructure, and that's why CloudFormation is actually a really good feature, and we're happy to have it.
Yes.
That's not to say CloudFormation doesn't have some quirks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
We like it. And the CloudFormation team, especially the last year, has been rocking in terms of features. I mean, all the stuff, the cross-stack referencing, YAML support, it's really been incredible the amount of work that they're investing into CloudFormation. So we're super hopeful that it's going to continue to improve, and some of these issues that we see in the framework could possibly be addressed on AWS's side, so they won't be issues in the future. But yeah, we like CloudFormation a lot. We're excited to see kind of how it changes and how it evolves, and keep supporting it.
Cool. So let's move on. We actually have a live question. So if you want to ask us live questions, you could do that through the YouTube channel or tweet at us. We're watching Twitter as well with the hashtag #AskServerless. But Vishal asks, what will be a perfect memory allocation to a Lambda function to get fast execution as well as making it less costly? That's interesting.
It's a tricky question.
Yeah.
I think in the end, you can measure it, like how much memory your function needs, and you can measure it per function. And then obviously if you have not enough memory, that will slow down the Lambda function significantly. The other side to it is that the more memory you provide to a function, the more CPU it will also have. So if in the end, like if you take the function if you take the largest memory allocation, it will definitely be the fastest. But yeah, that's a balance basically you have to find by yourself. The only like really important recommendation is like don't go too low what your function needs, because that will significantly slow it down.
Yeah, you'll see timeouts a lot when your function memory size is way too low. Was it Azure Functions that released the auto scaling for memory?
Yeah, they did.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's awesome. So Amazon, if you're listening, that's
Yeah.
Feature request.
Yeah, that's like the serverless paradigm, right? Auto scaling, don't have to think about it. So I want to see that with Dynamo as well.
Oh yeah.
Auto scaling.
Yeah.
I know the guys at Trek 10 have I don't know if it was a plugin or what, but they wrote a blog post on auto scaling Dynamo DBs based off like CloudWatch alarms.
Yeah, there's one from the AWS team, I think, on their blog.
Yeah, I tweeted at them to like if they're going to open source it. They didn't get back to me, but I'm calling you out. Just kidding. All right. Moving on. We had some other questions. Who put down the gulp question?
I did. I took this one from the Serverless forum. Someone asks, the question is titled "Using Gulp with Serverless," but this is really a packaging question. And whoever posted this wanted to know how to not package up their development dependencies in their node modules with their function, so that when you're deploying your function, you're not deploying all this unnecessary code that function doesn't really need. It's just code that is meant for the build process or something like that. And this is a problem that people struggle with the framework. It doesn't make sense to package up unnecessary code. So my recommendation for this is to make a workspace. And basically this is a parent folder in which all your serverless services reside in. And in that parent folder, you have a package.json with a node modules folder in the parent folder. And that's where you keep your dev dependencies. So the way NPM works is it always looks up, I think it's like 10 node modules folders for dependencies if it can't find something in whatever the current location is. So if you keep development dependencies in a parent folder that's not going to be zipped up as part of your Lambda function, it'll totally work. So it's a nice clean hack. You don't have to try and prune stuff or get into any crazy logic there. So that's one recommendation I have. Also, you could support multiple serverless services in that same workspace folder. So it'll work for all those things as well. You guys have any other thoughts on that?
You have some thoughts?
I think this is the best solution right now. Yeah.
There's also the Webpack and Babel plugins, and that's a good approach. I'm not a Webpack person, but I know that. Sorry, not Babel, Browserify. Browserify will do a great job. If you want to keep your functions, the size very, very low, use Browserify or use Webpack. And I know Browserify will strip out all the code that your function isn't using and really minify it. It could take it down like 75% sometimes. You could take a 100 kilobytes down to like 10 kilobytes with Browserify. And there is a Browserify plugin out there. I'm not sure. I haven't used the Webpack one, but I looked at it a while ago and it was awesome. It had a watcher, so it automatically deployed every time you hit save.
Oh yes, yeah.
And it was cool. It was Webpack and beyond, I think.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, and if you have a suggestion how to solve that in a better way, just let us know. Happy to hear your ideas.
Yeah. The tinier deployment, like the tinier size of your function, the faster you can deploy it and like iterate, actually like testing it live as well. So I'm interested to see some stuff maybe around Webpack 2 and like tree shaking and what have you.
Oh yeah,
that might be interesting. All right, we have some questions on Twitter as well. Let's see. So this is from Pete Johnson. He's asking for thoughts on other function as a service platforms. Like, when will other functions as a service platforms warrant more of your time? Like the Google plugin is an alpha, but it's early days. So where are we thinking with multi-provider support? When do we think that'll really take off?
This year, right away. We've chatted a lot about that on this team retreat. It's a big problem. It's really hard. A lot of these functions as a service offerings look similar at a glance, but once you look under the hood, they have very different characteristics and personalities and behaviors and all that stuff. So it's been a challenge to figure out how to work with all of them and provide this uniform experience across all of them. But I think we've pretty much figured a lot of that out, especially on this retreat. And we have good relationships with Amazon, of course. The Lambda / serverless team over there is fantastic. But Azure Functions, we're talking to them a lot as well. They're doing great work, as in the auto scaling memory size feature and stuff like that. The Google Cloud Functions team, we have a pretty good relationship with them over there. They're doing fantastic stuff. And it's really hard because everybody has kind of a different opinion as to how to build a function as a service product. And I can't say that any of those, it makes it difficult for us because we want to try and support all these various ways of doing things, but I can't say that any of them have the wrong opinion at the same time too. All their ideas are really interesting. So this is a huge priority for us, the beginning of 2017, to be honest. We have some stuff that we'll be releasing shortly around this, and we look forward to the community giving us feedback and jumping in and helping us make it better and make it the tooling that they want to use, of course.
For sure. I'm for multi-cloud provider support. Yeah, I'm for it.
Yeah, I think we all believe.
We forgot IBM. IBM is doing a really great job.
IBM OpenWhisk team.
Yeah,
those guys rock. James Thomas,
exactly.
Especially. Yeah, he's been doing a
lot
of work on integrations. Super great guy. Any other thoughts?
If you're interested in like prototype implementations. You can also look at the serverless organization on GitHub. There are examples for the Google Cloud Functions, for OpenWhisk, for Azure, and all those other providers. You can look into the code and see how this works behind the scenes. And Google Cloud, OpenWhisk, they are already, you can use them and tinker around with them and deploy some functions if you have an alpha account for Google Cloud Functions, for example.
Yeah. And those plugins are in our main serverless, github.com/serverless.
Exactly. Yeah. And there are also some examples in the examples repository for OpenWhisk, for example. Yeah.
Cool.
I think philosophically, we all believe, all of us here believe that developers should have freedom of choice and what tools they want to use, what cloud providers they want to use. And there's something that's very powerful in the ability that you could deploy some functions to AWS and some functions to Google. Because the way we see people author functions is they author these functions to work with the other proprietary services that a cloud provider is offering, like Google's machine learning stuff or AWS S3. And the ability to rig up architectures with multiple cloud providers by just having functions deployed everywhere, connected somehow, is very much interesting to us. And I think we'll have a lot more on that theme in the near future.
Cool.
Nice.
All right, we have another live question here from YouTube. Mahiz, apologize if I mispronounced your name. He's saying, hey guys, the world is moving more and more into IoT, the Internet of Things. Can we have more IoT examples? Nick, can we have more?
Oh yeah, I try to. It's a bit tricky, there's a lot of things to do, but I try to help you on that. So to say that, or in addition, like if you're working on IoT and you discovered like, hey, this could be a good example for others as well, please contribute, because that helps us, and especially the community the most, that we share code and that makes us all faster and learn from each other.
Yeah, let me add to that real quick that we have also some examples or blog posts in the pipeline and some also for IoT. So this is also interesting. So if you go to blog.serverless.com, in the near future, we will also feature some IoT blog posts there.
That's a good point. And another call out, if you do want to contribute blog post content as well, we'd be more than happy to feature, a project you've been working on.
Yeah.
Just get in touch with me or Stephanie on our team. And yeah, we'd be happy to do it. And our blog is open source. It's also in our GitHub repository. Cool. Austin, you had a question?
Yeah, I like this question. I think it's by Johannes in the live chat of the YouTube feed. They ask, what are your suggestions on splitting up larger functions into smaller ones and how to chain them? When should invoke SNS step plugins, which I think they meant step functions, be used, and when not? And that's a big question, but it's an interesting one. It really depends on what your use case is, of course. You could do synchronous invocations just using the AWS SDK to invoke one function from another function. If you want to do asynchronous stuff, SNS is a good option. And then step functions is kind of this whole other beast where it's defining a much larger chain and sequence of functions and how they work together. And I think step functions is one of the most interesting AWS announcements from this past reInvent out of all their Lambda themed announcements, right?
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I found it interesting that they used this internally for quite a while, but haven't announced it or didn't talk about it, and recently did. One of the concerns I have is like it's X times more expensive if you run something as a step function.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a bummer if you have a lot of like operations that you do. Then step functions might be an issue in terms of cost.
Right.
Yeah, but apart from that, it's a very interesting concept to build state machines.
Yeah, I fell in love with it when I saw the diagram of like just how the functions flow and how you can run them in parallel. But yeah, like Nick just mentioned, when I saw the price, I was like, oh. So I'm sure it'll get cheaper. That's their thing. So
yeah,
cool. So we have a couple more questions here on Twitter. Let's see. So this is from Kevin Old, our favorite guy. Let's see. So we got, what are our plans going forward with Alexa support? Any ideas if skill creation will be added to CloudFormation? I don't know if we know that, do we?
Not really, no.
Kevin, you stumped us. Okay, cool.
We'll get back to you on that one, Kevin.
Yeah.
And by the way, you're the man. We appreciate all the support. It's been over a year since you've been supporting this project, and every single day we're just grateful to have you around. So see you in the Twitter world.
So you guys worked on the first version of the dashboard, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Kevin was the guy who took the initiative to try and get that off the ground, but it was so early. We were making lots of breaking changes. It was hard for him to do a GUI on top of something that was kind of changing every single day. So, but yeah, he was the pioneer behind that whole effort.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice.
Let's see, man, the questions are rolling in. All right, so
Here's kind of a good one.
Okay.
And maybe Maciej wants to do a special guest appearance.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
There he is.
there he is.
He's a microservice guy.
Yeah. For a microservice architecture, would you recommend lambdas calling lambdas? Currently, my services are using each other by calling the API gateway with the X API key for security. Pros and cons.
Yeah, well, definitely it will be faster to call Lambda from Lambda without calling through API gateway, because that adds additional latency. For the security, like, of course, like, if you want to secure lambdas, you can, of course, like, put some logic into each lambda to make sure that they are called from the proper place. That's, of course, requires some additional code, but it still will be faster because, like I said, API gateway adds some latency. So, like, as a pro, it will be faster. As a con, it requires some work. So, yeah.
And maybe one other point is if they do call another service through API Gateway can do auth right there, and it never has to touch the Lambda function.
Yeah.
So that's something else to consider. So if you're doing that auth inside the Lambda function, there's a chance it could be called a whole bunch, or you get DDoS or something, right? And which would result in a lot of costs. So
Yeah, there's no simple solution for that.
never a simple solution.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Maciej.
Thanks.
All right. Yeah, we got a couple more questions here. Let's see. What tool would you recommend for monitoring and alerting with AWS Lambda? I found it very hard. This is Lucas writes. I find it very hard to get meaningful alerts. That's a good question.
What we see,
CloudWatch,
what we see by far, like 85-90% of our users are just using CloudWatch and setting up custom configurations on that.
What may help a bit, there are a couple of, like, in general, monitoring providers or tools out there who now integrate with CloudWatch. So what you can do is you can pipe the data eventually to these to these services, and then get more interesting analytics out of it. That may help. And I think, like, one is Datadog. They have an integration.
Datadog, New Relic,
Yeah.
Splunk, Loggly, Sumo Logic. There's quite a few now. And then, of course, Amazon has X-Ray, which is, could be part of this, which looks really interesting. There's also a great sort of Lambda-focused distributed tracing company called IOPipes you could check out, run by Adam and Eric. Very cool startup. I wish we could dial these people in.
That would be cool. Yeah.
Because I want to, ask them more follow-up questions, and it's hard.
Maybe for next time,
Yeah, next office hours we'll have a live dial-in.
Yeah.
Yeah, we also had some discussions internally, or also with the community, about adding some default alerts right out of the box. I think there is an issue on GitHub, so you can chime in there and discuss it with us. This might be also interesting to have some defaults.
So we have an AWS Sam question. Chris is asking, any thoughts about AWS Sam? And that's Amazon's new serverless application model. It's basically a CloudFormation. It's kind of more convenient CloudFormation syntax for describing serverless architectures. So when you do anything in CloudFormation, it usually results in tons of resources, and then you run into resource stack resource limits and stuff like that. And Amazon created some simpler syntax for describing a whole bunch of resources together, essentially, and then kind of called them their serverless resources. And this has become known as SAM. And we get some requests to integrate with SAM, and we are planning an integration. We're just trying to figure out how to do that in an optimal way. So we are really focused on multi-provider support, and we have to answer that question, how we're going to scale this across multiple providers really well before we can figure out where the SAM piece comes in. So that's on the roadmap. We just don't know when yet. For sure. Do you guys have anything else you want to add to that?
Not really. I mean, eventually supporting SAM under the hood, I think makes sense on the long run. There's a couple of blockers that bug us a bit right now. For example, SAM doesn't support Lambda versioning, and there might be other things that it doesn't support yet. I guess I'm pretty sure it's coming. So these are kind of blockers to not do it. But yeah, we definitely, or we could do it if we deprecate the Lambda versioning again. But it's something we're looking into, and it's on the sooner or later it's coming.
Yeah, and there's also an issue on GitHub, so you can also read through the whole discussion there and chime in.
Yeah, in general, it's such a hard thing to jump on and embrace the new technologies right away, right when they come out. And there's so much excitement about them, but they're so immature in the early days, of course, and they don't have all the features and stuff. And then we're kind of caught in this race because we've been doing this for the last year and a half for API Gateway and Lambda and whatnot, just trying to create this what we think is a better developer experience on top of technology that's still evolving and changing. And we're constantly chasing a moving target. So we have to be very selective in what we focus on right now, because it takes a lot of work. I mean, these things, even if you read through all the documentation, if the documentation is complete, which is sometimes another problem, there's still a lot of quirks that we have to uncover in when we go to build the integrations and stuff. So
it's, they call it bleeding edge for a reason. You're gonna get cut. You're gonna see those rough edges. It looks like Andres just joined, and Andres, we answered your CloudFormation question right at the beginning, so you might need to rewind after this and check that out on the CloudFormation limitations. We have another question here from Lucas. We have time for a couple more. He's asking, how do you recommend building and debugging Lambda functions? We currently develop, test, and run locally with test coverage. Once everything works, locally we deploy. Is this a best practice?
I would say so, yeah. Testing is, like, unit testing is definitely the way to go. But yeah, I would love to see, like, our offline support was a hot topic, and there is an offline plugin. So if you want to have offline support, especially for developing your front end or full stack, your front end together with your backend, that's super useful. It's a bit tricky though, because once you start using like a couple of services, let's for example say you start using SNS, then you don't have that locally anymore, and then in the end, like, the way to go still is to do tests, develop, test it, and then eventually deploy it. And I think that's still the best practice. And yeah,
we have great local emulation, which we're going to continue to improve upon, just our local support.
Yeah.
But once you get into this world of testing out a full event-driven workflow or asynchronous workflow, testing all that locally, it's really, really hard. Now, API Gateway, the synchronous stuff is a lot easier, and there is that great offline plugin to do all that. But again, it's a situation where there's no clear answer, because it's just a wide surface area and a lot of use cases, which all need to be tested differently sometimes. But definitely writing tests locally, breaking them up into unit tests, and then integration tests. I don't know if Maciej has anything else he wants to add to testing.
Not really. I think you covered everything.
Okay.
Maciej is our resident testing guy. Test-driven development right here. Cool. So let's see. We have time for, let's do one or two more questions. And if we don't get to your questions this time, we're going to be doing office hours pretty regularly every 2 weeks, I think we're trying to do right now. And maybe next time we'll have a live call in. That will be awesome. But another one of the questions was, let's see, let's jump into this one. Kevin Old asked another question. He said, any interesting insights or patterns from like the usage of serverless? So we do like anonymous kind of stats on, and we're seeing what kind of commands are being run. And are we using this to kind of improve the platform and the framework?
Maybe you can say.
Well, a big one I've seen is the local development story.
Oh yeah.
And it's just interesting. In the beginning, in version 0, when we first made this project, that was one of the core features, was a great local development story. So local emulation, and we put a lot of work into that. And then version 1, we didn't put so much work into that initially. Actually, we didn't have the ability to invoke locally. It was clear that was a huge mistake. And it took us, we had to start collecting the data to really realize like how big of a mistake it was. But as soon as we put that functionality back in, that's become one of our most popular operations or things that people do with the framework, is just local emulation. So that's been big for us, even though I think a lot of people say, oh, this is purely a cloud thing and it's just time to move all development into the cloud. That's not what we're seeing. People really like that local development story, and it makes sense. It's what they're used to. It's like how they've built stuff for years and years. So that's been a big one.
I find, like, for me, I mean, these stats are quite interesting, but we did a framework survey, and I think it's still open. Mm-hmm. And I think that was like these personal comments from people, that was like way more valuable to me, I think in general to us, because that's also where the examples project came from. Because a lot of people mentioned like, hey, what we are missing is examples. It's like, it's nice to get started, to write one Lambda, but like what then? And I want to have an easier process there and like look at how other people do it. And we try to fulfill that by building this example project. And there's a couple more things, and I basically have to go in and again and see like what has changed since then, what's the biggest pain point, and see where we can help people.
I think another interesting thing is that we now see a kind of transition into the CI/CD system integration, because more and more people try or want to use serverless in a CI/CD system. And if you go to Docker Hub, for example, you see a bunch of different Docker containers. So people are already using CI/CD systems with serverless. And this is also an interesting one, I think.
Yeah.
It is incredible the amount of communication you get from the outside when you have a big open source project. And it comes in through all channels, just chat rooms, forums, all the social media channels, and GitHub, of course, and email, in person, at meetups, at conferences, all that stuff. And a lot of things that seem obvious, like you need to have examples, kind of get lost in this just haze of feedback and just all types of stuff coming at us. So the data is so helpful in really helping us prioritize and understand what's going on, of course. And the survey too has been incredible. We're going to be doing a lot more of that stuff in the future, because it's hard. There's a lot of stuff coming at us, and we want to build the stuff you guys want most. Figuring out what that is a challenge sometimes.
Yeah, and if you guys haven't taken the community survey yet, we'll tweet out a link probably later today. So check that out. And yeah, I mean, like Nick was saying, those checking check boxes is one thing, but yeah, if you give us, right in that paragraph, give us some information, some context about what you're doing, what you're struggling with, that's the stuff that really kind of motivates us to keep building what we're building, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah. Cool.
There's one more from from Andres, and he says, is the team planning to build libraries to work with AWS services more easily? For example, serverless/SNS or serverless/Dynamo. This could enrich the framework and establish a common architecture for projects. Yeah, we have some interesting thoughts on this. We're actually going to be chatting about that today. And all I can say really is stay tuned. But I think we will have something for this to help everyone do this stuff in the very near future. So stay tuned on that front.
Cool.
And I think that might be all we have time for. We got a race to do other meetings because we flew everyone in from around the world, and we only have limited time to actually hang out with everyone, get everyone in the same room together, which is such a rare thing because we're a distributed team. We've hired a lot from our open source community, actually, and we got to hang out and chat about the future.
Yeah. So I think that will conclude the office hours. Before you guys go, though, I'm gonna turn the camera around and show you our view from our Ukiah retreat. And yeah, thanks for tuning in, and watch out for more office hours coming up in the future. So without further ado,
Say goodbye, team.
say goodbye, everybody. And then we're gonna. Here we go. I can't see what they're seeing, so you guys tell me if it's a good view.
Looks good.
Yeah.
Better, yeah.
Amazing.
Wow. Cool.
You want me to stop it?
Yeah. All right. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye.